Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the unknown planet grow larger on the main screen. His scaled hands gripped the metal railing as his yellow eyes studied the world below. The planet looked beautiful from space, with blue oceans and green continents, but his instruments told a different story. "Sir, the readings don't make sense," said Lieutenant Kexmar, looking up from her console. Her reptilian features showed confusion as she checked her instruments again. "This planet should be dead." Vexitar moved closer to examine the data. 500 years ago, something massive had hit this world. The impact crater was still visible on the northern continent, a huge circular scar that stretched for hundreds of miles. An asteroid that size should have killed everything on the planet. "Show me the atmospheric readings," Vextar ordered. The screen filled with numbers and charts. The air was clean and breathable. The temperature was perfect for life. There were no signs of the dust and poison that should still be choking the atmosphere after such a disaster. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Zethron, the ship's science officer. "A rock that big should have thrown so much debris into the air that nothing could grow for centuries. The planet should still be frozen and dark." But the scanners showed something else entirely. There were cities down there, large ones. Green farmland stretched between them like a patchwork quilt. Rivers ran clean and clear to the oceans. Everything looked healthy and alive. "Sir, I'm picking up energy signatures," reported the communications officer. "Multiple power sources across all the continents. These aren't just small settlements. These are major population centers." Vextar's mind raced. The Galactic Empire had detailed records of every known species in this sector. This planet wasn't on any of their maps. It was supposed to be empty space. "Run a deep scan," he commanded. "I want to know what kind of creatures are down there." The scanning beam swept across the planet's surface. Data flowed back to the ship's computers, analyzed and sorted by the artificial intelligence systems. After several minutes, the results appeared on the main screen. Dr. Zethron gasped. "Sir, you need to see this." The scan showed the genetic patterns of the planet's inhabitants. Vextar stared at the familiar double helix structure, the specific protein markers, the unique DNA signature that every Imperial officer learned to recognize. "Humans," he whispered. But that was impossible. Everyone knew what had happened to the humans. 300 years ago, during the Great Purge, the Empire had destroyed their homeworld. The human species was extinct. The official records were very clear about that. "There must be an error," Vextar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Scan again." The results came back the same. The genetic markers were unmistakable. These were definitely humans living on the planet below. "How many?" Vextar asked quietly. "Sir, the population readings are significant," Lieutenant Kexmar replied, her voice uncertain. "I'm detecting organized settlements across 7 continents. The largest city appears to have over 10 million inhabitants." 10 million? Vextar couldn't hide his shock. "That's not a small group of survivors. That's a civilization." He walked to the large window that showed the planet below. White clouds drifted over green lands. He could see the lights of cities even from this distance. It looked peaceful and prosperous. The implications hit him like a physical blow. If humans had survived and built all of this, then everything the Empire believed about the Great Purge was wrong. The humans hadn't been completely destroyed. Somehow, some of them had escaped to this forgotten world and not just survived but thrived. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his second-in-command. Captain Mordek. Vextar was silent for a long moment. Standard Imperial procedure was clear. Any uncharted world with significant resources was to be claimed for the Empire. Any unknown species was to be evaluated for potential threats or usefulness. But these weren't unknown aliens. These were humans, and humans were supposed to be extinct. "Prepare a reconnaissance team," he finally decided. "I want a full survey of the largest population center. But keep our distance. I want to understand what we're dealing with before we make contact." "Should I inform Imperial Command?" Captain Mordek asked. "Not yet," Vextar said quickly. "Not until we know more." As the reconnaissance ships prepared to launch, Vextar found himself studying the planet with new eyes. The humans down there had built something impressive. Their cities were large and well organized. Their farmlands were productive and green. They had turned a dead world into a garden. But how? The asteroid impact should have made the planet uninhabitable for centuries. Even if some humans had been on the planet when it hit, they should have died with everything else. There was no way they could have survived and then built all of this. Dr. Zethron approached him with a data pad. Sir, I've been studying the crater. There's something strange about it. Strange how? It's not just a crater anymore. There are structures built around it and inside it. The humans appear to be using it for something. I'm detecting massive energy readings coming from the impact site. Vextar looked at the image on the datapad. The crater was indeed filled with buildings and strange installations. Roads led in and out like spokes on a wheel. It looked almost like the humans had turned the site of their near extinction into the center of their civilization. Fascinating, he murmured. They're not hiding from what nearly destroyed them. They're embracing it. The reconnaissance team launched an hour later. As Vextar watched the small ships descend toward the planet, he felt a mixture of curiosity and concern. The Empire prided itself on knowing everything about the galaxy. They had catalogs of every species, maps of every system, records of every significant event. But this planet and its human inhabitants were not in any of those records. It was as if they had appeared from nowhere, building a thriving civilization on a world that should have been a graveyard. The reconnaissance ships disappeared into the planet's atmosphere, beginning their survey of the impossible world below. Vextar remained on the bridge watching and waiting for answers to questions he had never thought to ask. What he didn't know was that far below, in the gleaming city of New Sol, other eyes were watching his ships with equal interest. The humans had been waiting for this day for a very long time. The Imperial Council chamber on the capital world was silent as Admiral Vextar finished his report. The 12 council members sat in their ornate chairs, their alien faces showing various degrees of shock, disbelief, and anger. Council Prime Shandar, the Empire's supreme leader, was the first to speak. His voice was calm, but Vextar could see the tension in his posture. "Let me understand this correctly, Admiral," Shandar said. "You are telling us that a species we believed extinct has not only survived, but has built a hidden civilization that spans nearly 50 worlds?" "Yes, Prime," Vextar replied. "The evidence is overwhelming. The humans have established a distributed network of colonies throughout the galaxy, all connected by advanced communication systems and defended by superior technology." Council member Jorvak, the Empire's military commander, slammed his fist on the table. "This is unacceptable. A lesser species has been spying on us, hiding from us, making us look like fools." "With respect, Council member," Vextar said carefully, "they may not be a lesser species anymore. Their technology surpasses ours in many critical areas." "Impossible," snarled Council member Vexthon. "Humans were barely capable of spaceflight when we destroyed their homeworld. They couldn't have advanced so far in just a few centuries." "Yet they have," Vextar insisted. "I've seen their cities, their technologies, their capabilities with my own eyes. They have turned survival into innovation and created something remarkable." Council Prime Shandar raised his hand for silence. "What exactly are they proposing, Admiral?" "A formal alliance," Vextar explained. "They offer to share their technologies with us in exchange for recognition of their independence and equal diplomatic status." The Council erupted in angry voices. Several members shouted that the Empire did not negotiate with subordinate species. Others demanded immediate military action to crush this human rebellion before it could spread. But Council member Corvin, the Empire's chief scientist, asked the question that made everyone fall silent. "Admiral, could their technologies actually solve our current problems?" Vextar nodded grimly. "Dr. Zetheron believes their agricultural systems could end food shortages on 12 of our outer rim worlds. Their energy technologies could power our industrial centers for centuries. Their environmental restoration methods could repair the damage on our most polluted planets." "And their military capabilities?" asked Jorvak. "Superior to ours in every meaningful way," Vextar admitted. "Their ships are more advanced, their weapons more powerful, and their defensive systems nearly impenetrable. More importantly, they are distributed across the galaxy. We could destroy 1 or even 10 of their worlds, but we could never eliminate them all." The chamber fell silent again as the council members absorbed this information. For 3 centuries, the Empire had expanded through superior technology and overwhelming force. Now they faced a civilization that possessed both advantages. "There is something else," Vextar added quietly. "They have been monitoring our communications for decades. They know our military capabilities, our expansion patterns, our internal politics. They could have attacked us at any time, but they chose not to." "Why?" asked Council Prime Shandar. "Because they prefer cooperation to conflict. They believe that partnership serves everyone's interest better than conquest." Councilmember Zarketh laughed bitterly. How naive. The galaxy is ruled by strength, not cooperation. Is it? Vextar asked. The humans have survived extinction, built a galactic civilization, and developed technologies we can barely understand. Perhaps their approach has merit. The debate continued for hours. Some council members demanded immediate war against the human worlds. Others worried about the cost of fighting an enemy that was distributed, hidden, and technologically superior. A few suggested that the human proposal might actually benefit the Empire. Finally, Council Prime Shandar called for order. We face an unprecedented situation, he said. We must choose between three options. War against a hidden enemy we might not be able to defeat, continued expansion while ignoring this threat, or accepting partnership with a civilization that challenges everything we believe about power. What do you recommend, Admiral? Asked Council Member Corvin. Vextar thought of the human cities he had seen, the technologies that could transform imperial worlds, and the quiet confidence of leaders like President Ki Wu. I recommend we accept their proposal, he said, not because we are weak, but because we could become stronger through cooperation. The vote was closer than anyone expected. 6 council members voted for war, 5 voted for partnership, and 1 abstained. Council Prime Shandar held the deciding vote. I have led this empire for 30 years, he said slowly. I have seen conquest and expansion bring us great power. But I have also seen the costs, depleted worlds, rebellious populations, endless conflicts on our borders. Perhaps it is time to try a different approach. He cast his vote for partnership. 3 months later, Admiral Vextar stood in the same council chamber where the humans had first revealed their civilization. But now the room looked different. Human and Imperial engineers had worked together to install new communication systems that connected New Terra directly to the Imperial capital. The signing ceremony was unlike anything in Imperial history. Instead of a conquered species accepting Imperial rule, 2 equal civilizations were creating a new kind of relationship. Ambassador Insu, the human representative, signed the Terra Accords with the same pen that President Kai Wu had used to sign the original human constitution. Centuries earlier, Council Prime Shandar signed with a ceremonial stylus made from metals that had once been part of the asteroid that nearly destroyed the human race. This agreement represents more than just an alliance, Shandar said as the ceremony concluded. It represents a new way of thinking about galactic civilization. Insu nodded. Our species have both learned hard lessons about survival. Perhaps together we can build something better than either of us could achieve alone. As the ceremony ended, Vextar walked to the great window that looked out over New Sol. The city sprawled before him, a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. In the distance, he could see the great crater where an asteroid had once nearly ended human civilization. Now it gleamed with installations that powered the city and provided resources for the growing alliance between humans and the Empire. Children played in the parks below, both human and alien children, whose parents were working together on joint projects. They represented something new in galactic history, a generation that would grow up seeing cooperation as normal instead of exceptional. It's remarkable, isn't it? Said a familiar voice. Vextar turned to see Dr. So Young approaching. 5 centuries ago, our species was dying on a poisoned world. Today, we're helping to heal worlds throughout the galaxy. How did you know it would work? Vextar asked. How did you know that cooperation would be more powerful than conquest? So Young smiled as she watched the children play. Because we learned something that the Empire is just discovering. The strongest civilizations are not those that can destroy their enemies, but those that can turn their enemies into friends. As the sun set over New Terra, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Vextar understood that he had witnessed something historic. The galaxy had changed forever, not through war or conquest, but through the simple recognition that different species could choose to build something together rather than tear each other apart. The Empire had stumbled upon a lost world and found something more valuable than territory or resources. They had found a new way to survive and thrive among the stars. Dr. Zetheron had seen many worlds in his years as the Empire's chief scientist, but nothing had prepared him for what he found on New Terra. As he followed Dr. So Young through the research facilities of New Sol, his instruments kept giving him readings that seemed impossible. This is our agricultural center, So Young explained as they entered a vast greenhouse complex. We developed these growing systems after the impact. Zethron stared in amazement. Plants grew in neat rows that stretched as far as he could see, but they weren't growing in soil. Instead, they floated in tanks of clear liquid, their roots reaching down into carefully controlled nutrient baths. The plants were huge and healthy, with fruits and vegetables that looked perfect. "How much food does this produce?" he asked, running his scanner over the nearest tank. "Each unit produces about 3 times what traditional farming methods would yield in the same space," So Young replied casually. "And we can grow anything regardless of the local climate." Zethron checked his scanner again. The numbers couldn't be right. These plants were not only growing faster than anything he had ever seen, but they were also producing more nutrition per unit than any food source in the Empire. "This is remarkable," he said. "How did you develop this technology?" So Young smiled. "Necessity. When the asteroid hit, it changed our atmosphere and soil composition. We had to find new ways to grow food, or we would have starved." They moved to the next section where So Young showed him something even more incredible. Through a large window, Zethron could see the impact crater in the distance. But instead of a dead scar on the landscape, it was alive with activity. "The crater is the heart of our energy system," So Young explained. "The asteroid brought rare minerals to the surface, and the impact created deep channels that reach the planet's core. We use geothermal energy from those channels to power our cities." "You turned the disaster into a resource," Zethron said, hardly believing what he was hearing. "We turned it into many resources," corrected a new voice. They turned to see a man approaching them. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with the confident bearing of someone used to solving difficult problems. "This is Dong Hyun, our chief architect," So Young introduced. "He designed most of our city systems." Dong Hyun gestured toward the crater. "The asteroid didn't just bring minerals and energy. It also changed our weather patterns and created new geographical features. We studied these changes and designed our cities to work with them instead of against them." He led them to a control room where holographic displays showed the entire planet. Zethron could see cities floating above cloud layers, underground complexes that followed natural cave systems, and networks of tubes that carried people and goods between distant locations. "Your cities move," Zethron observed. "Watching the displays, some of them," Dong Hyun confirmed. "When weather patterns change or resources shift, entire sections can relocate. We learned that fighting the planet's natural cycles is wasteful. It's better to flow with them." Zethron thought of the Empire's cities with their rigid structures and constant need for maintenance and repair. These human settlements seemed to maintain themselves. "Show him the forest project," So Young suggested. They took a transport to the edge of the city, where Zethron saw something that made him question everything he knew about ecology. A vast forest stretched before them, but this wasn't like any forest that occurred naturally. The trees were arranged in perfect patterns, their branches interweaving to create a canopy that filtered light and managed water flow with mathematical precision. "We call it our resilience forest," explained a woman who joined them. She introduced herself as Hyejin, and her clothes were dirty from working in the soil. "The trees are specially designed to work together." "Designed?" Zethron asked. "We modified their genetics so that when one tree is stressed or damaged, the others support it through their root networks," Hyejin explained. "The whole forest becomes stronger when individual parts are threatened." Zethron knelt and placed his hand on the ground. His scanners detected an incredibly complex underground network of roots, fungal connections, and chemical communication systems. The trees weren't just growing near each other. They were actively cooperating. "This network extends throughout the planet," Hyejin continued. "Every forest, every garden, every agricultural center is connected. If one area has problems, resources automatically flow from other areas to help. The entire planet is one ecosystem," Zethron said, understanding beginning to dawn. "Exactly," So Young said. "When the asteroid hit, it destroyed the natural ecosystem that had evolved here over millions of years. So we built a new one, but this time we designed it to be stronger and more resilient than anything that could occur naturally." They returned to the research center, where So Young showed him the most incredible thing yet. In a secure laboratory, she revealed tanks containing what looked like liquid starlight. "This is the key to everything," she said. "The asteroid contained elements that don't exist anywhere else in this solar system. When we learned to process and use them, they opened up possibilities we had never imagined. Zethron's scanner went wild when he pointed it at the tanks. The energy readings were off his charts. What does it do? He asked. It amplifies biological processes, So Young explained. A few drops in our nutrient solutions make plants grow faster and stronger. A tiny amount in our water purification systems can clean an entire lake. We use it in our medical treatments, our construction materials, even our transportation systems. Where do you get more of it? So Young smiled mysteriously. The asteroid impact created deep fissures in the planet's crust. The same forces that nearly destroyed us now provide us with a renewable source of these materials. The planet itself has become our partner in survival. As they walked back through the city, Zethron tried to process everything he had seen. These humans had taken a dead world and turned it into something that surpassed anything the Empire had achieved. Their technology was not just advanced, it was elegant and sustainable. Dr. So Young, he said finally, how many people live on this planet? About 200 million across all 7 continents, she replied. Zethron stopped walking. 200 million? Our initial scans suggested maybe 50 million at most. Your scans probably missed our underground cities and floating settlements, So Young said. We have learned to live in harmony with the planet's systems, which means we don't always live on the surface. As they reached the spaceport where his shuttle waited, Zethron realized that everything he would report back to Admiral Vextar would sound impossible. No one in the Empire would believe that a species they thought extinct had not only survived, but had built a civilization that might be superior to their own. Dr. So Young, he said as they prepared to part, why are you showing me all of this? Aren't you concerned that the Empire might want to take your technology? She looked at him with eyes that were kind but not naive. Dr. Zethron, we have been watching the Empire for many years. We know about your expansion policies and your methods. We're showing you this because we hope that understanding might lead to something better than conquest. And if it doesn't, then we will do what we have always done, she said simply. We will adapt, survive, and continue to thrive. Admiral Vexistar read the reports from his diplomatic and scientific teams 3 times before accepting that they weren't mistakes. The humans on New Terra weren't desperate survivors clinging to life on a damaged world. They were a thriving civilization with technology that surpassed the Empire's in many areas. The message from Imperial Command was clear and direct. Claim the planet and its resources for the Empire. The new technologies alone would be worth a dozen normal worlds. The rare minerals from the asteroid impact could fuel Imperial expansion for centuries. But as Vextar prepared for the formal annexation ceremony, he felt an unusual uncertainty. These humans were nothing like the Empire's records described. They were organized, advanced, and apparently well-informed about galactic politics. Sir, the human leadership has requested a meeting, reported Captain Mordek. They want to discuss our proposal before we proceed. Very well, Vextar said. But make it clear that this is a formality. The Empire has decided to include their world in our territories. The meeting took place in the Humans' Council Chamber. Vextar arrived with a full honor guard and formal documentation of annexation. He expected the humans to be nervous or perhaps to try bargaining for better terms. Instead, he found himself facing a woman who radiated calm authority. She was middle-aged with intelligent eyes and silver hair, and she showed no sign of fear or submission. I am President Ki Wu, she said, rising to greet him. I speak for all the human settlements on New Terra. We understand you have a proposal for us. President Ki Wu, Vextar began, using his most official tone. The Galactic Empire formally claims this world and offers citizenship to your people. You will enjoy the protection and benefits of Imperial membership in exchange for reasonable resource contributions and loyalty to Imperial law. Ki Wu listened politely, then smiled. Admiral, we appreciate your offer, but we must respectfully decline. The words hit Vextar like a physical blow. In 3 centuries of expansion, no world had ever refused Imperial annexation. Species might resist initially, but they always accepted reality once they understood the Empire's power. I'm not sure you understand, he said carefully. This is not a negotiation. The Empire has decided to include your world in our territories, and we have decided to remain independent, Ki Wu replied calmly. A man sitting next to her leaned forward. He had the bearing of a military officer, and his eyes were sharp and alert. Admiral, I am Defense Minister Wanho. Perhaps you should know that we have been monitoring Imperial communications for quite some time. We are well aware of your expansion methods. Vextar felt a chill run down his spine. If the humans had been intercepting Imperial transmissions, they knew exactly what happened to worlds that refused annexation. Then you know that resistance is futile, he said, trying to maintain his authority. The Empire's fleet is vast and powerful. Yes, we've studied your fleet compositions and tactics, Wanho said matter-of-factly. Very impressive. However, we think you should see something before you make any final decisions. The lights in the chamber dimmed, and the dome ceiling became transparent. Through it, Vextar could see his ships in orbit above the planet. But something was wrong with the image. Computer, enhance the orbital view, Kiwu commanded. The image zoomed in on Vextar's fleet and he gasped. Surrounding his ships were dozens of vessels he hadn't detected before. They seemed to shimmer and blend with the space around them, becoming visible only when the computer highlighted their positions. Our Harmony fleet, Wanho explained. They use adaptive camouflage that makes them nearly invisible to most scanning systems. They've been watching your ship since you arrived. Impossible, Vextar whispered. Our sensors would have detected them. Your sensors are designed to find ships that use traditional Imperial technology, said a new voice. A woman in a military uniform approached the table. I am Captain Subin of the Harmony fleet. Our ships use principles your scientists haven't discovered yet. The display changed to show technical specifications that made Vextar's blood run cold. The human ships were smaller than Imperial vessels but far more advanced. Their weapon systems, shields, and propulsion technology were all superior to anything in the Imperial arsenal. How many ships? He asked quietly. In this system? About 200, Subin replied casually. But that's just our local defense force. Kiwu touched a control on the table and the display changed again. Now it showed a map of the galaxy with dozens of star systems highlighted in blue. Admiral, I think you should know the complete truth, she said. New Terra is not the only human world. Over the past 5 centuries, we have established colonies on 47 different planets throughout the galaxy. Vextar stared at the map in shock. The blue dots were scattered across Imperial space and beyond. Many were in systems the Empire considered empty or worthless. 47 worlds, he repeated numbly. All connected by quantum communication networks, Wanho added. All defended by Harmony fleets. All sharing technology and resources through our distributed civilization. The implications crashed over Vextar like a tidal wave. The Empire hadn't discovered a single isolated world. They had stumbled into a hidden galactic civilization that rivaled their own in size and surpassed them in technology. Why? He asked. Why hide from the galaxy? Because we learned from our past, Kiwu said sadly. Our original homeworld was destroyed because we were too visible, too easy to target. We decided that our survival depended on being distributed and hidden. No single attack could destroy us again. But now you're revealing yourselves. Only to you, she said, and only because we hoped that the Empire might be ready for a different kind of relationship. Vextar looked around the room at the humans. They weren't afraid of him or his fleet. They weren't desperate for Imperial protection. They were offering him a choice, but he was beginning to understand that he was the one in the weaker position. What kind of relationship? He asked. Partnership, Kiwu said simply. We have technologies that could solve many of the Empire's problems. Food shortages, energy crises, environmental damage on your worlds. We could share these solutions, in exchange for what? Recognition of our independence and formal diplomatic relations. We want to be equals, not subjects. Wanho activated another display showing Imperial worlds. Many were highlighted in red. These are Imperial planets that are struggling with resource depletion, crop failures, or environmental collapse. We could help them. Why would you want to help the Empire? Vextar asked suspiciously. Because we share this galaxy, Kiwu replied. When worlds suffer, everyone suffers eventually. We have learned that cooperation serves everyone's interests better than conquest. Vextar sat in silence, trying to process everything he had learned. The Empire had discovered something unprecedented. A civilization that had not only survived Imperial expansion, but had grown stronger in hiding. They were offering partnership instead of demanding submission, cooperation instead of conquest. But accepting their offer would mean admitting that the Empire's expansion methods were flawed. It would mean recognizing that another civilization might have better solutions to galactic problems. I need to consult with Imperial Command, he said finally. Of course, Kiwu said. But Admiral, I hope you will consider the alternatives carefully. The galaxy is large enough for both our civilizations to thrive. As Vextar prepared to leave, he looked back at the humans one more time. They had built something remarkable from the ashes of near extinction. Perhaps it was time for the Empire to learn from their example. Ambassador Kethral adjusted his formal robes as the shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere. He had conducted hundreds of first contact missions for the Empire, and they all followed the same pattern. The Empire arrived, evaluated the local population, and then offered them protection in exchange for resources and loyalty. Most species were grateful for the opportunity to join the galactic community. This mission should be no different. The reconnaissance teams had confirmed that humans were living on the planet, but humans were weak. Everyone knew that. Before their extinction, they had been one of the least impressive species in the galaxy. No natural weapons, fragile bodies, short lifespans. The survivors down there would probably beg to join the Empire. "Sir, we're approaching the designated landing zone," announced the pilot. "It's just outside their largest city." Ketharal looked out the window and was surprised by what he saw. The city below was massive, stretching to the horizon in all directions. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, connected by graceful bridges. Green parks and gardens were scattered throughout, making the whole place look like a work of art. "This is bigger than I expected," he admitted to his aide. The shuttle touched down in what appeared to be a prepared landing area. Ketharal had expected to find a crude clearing or maybe a simple platform. Instead, they had landed on a perfectly smooth surface with marking lights and guidance systems. "It looked as professional as anything the Empire used, sir. There's a welcoming committee approaching," reported the security chief. Ketharal stepped out of the shuttle, expecting to see a small group of nervous humans carrying primitive gifts. Instead, he found himself facing a convoy of sleek vehicles that looked more advanced than anything in his shuttle bay. The lead vehicle was elegant and streamlined, hovering silently above the ground without any visible means of propulsion. A door opened in the lead vehicle, and a human stepped out. He was tall and confident, wearing clothes that looked both practical and refined. His black hair was neatly styled, and his dark eyes showed intelligence and calm authority. "Welcome to New Terra," the human said in perfect Imperial standard. "I am Mayor Jamin of New Sol. We have been expecting you." Ketharal was caught off guard. Not only did this human speak the Empire's language fluently, but he had said they were expecting the Imperial delegation. How could they have known the Empire was coming? "I am Ambassador Ketharal of the Galactic Empire," he replied, trying to regain his composure. "We come in peace to make contact with your people." Mayor Jamin smiled. "Of course. Please join me in my vehicle. I will take you to our council chambers where we can speak more comfortably." The interior of the human vehicle was impressive. The seats were soft and comfortable, and the ride was so smooth that Ketharal could barely tell they were moving. Through the transparent windows, he watched the city pass by in amazement. The buildings were not just large, but beautiful. They seemed to grow from the ground like living things with curved lines and surfaces that reflected the sunlight. Gardens and water features were everywhere, making the city feel alive and natural despite its obvious technology. "Your city is unexpected," Ketharal said carefully. "Thank you," Jamin replied. "We have worked hard to build something worthy of our new home." "New home?" Ketharal asked. "How long have your people been here?" "Our ancestors arrived about 500 years ago," Jamin said casually. "Just before the asteroid impact, actually. Quite fortunate timing." Ketharal's mind reeled. The humans had been here during the impact. They had survived a planet-killing disaster and then built all of this. The vehicle stopped in front of a massive building that seemed to be made of crystal and light. As they walked inside, Ketharal saw humans everywhere, going about their daily business. They looked healthy and happy, dressed in clean, well-made clothing. Children played in the corridors while adults worked at stations with technology he didn't recognize. The council chamber was a large, circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the sky above. Around the table sat several humans, each one looking calm and prepared. Ketharal realized this wasn't going to be the simple negotiation he had expected. "Please sit," said a woman at the head of the table. She had gray hair and kind eyes, but Ketharal could sense the strength beneath her gentle manner. "I am Council Leader So Young. We understand you wish to discuss our planet's future." "Yes," Ketharal said, settling into his chair. The Galactic Empire offers protection and membership to all peaceful species. In exchange, we ask for loyalty and a reasonable share of your world's resources. The humans exchanged glances. It wasn't the nervous uncertainty Kethral expected. It was more like parents sharing a private joke about something their child had said. That is very generous, Jamin said politely. But we are curious about something. Why does the Empire believe we need protection? Well, Kethral began, then realized he didn't have a good answer. Looking around the room, he saw no signs of fear or desperation. These humans seemed perfectly capable of taking care of themselves. Perhaps you could tell us about your world, So Young suggested. We would love to hear about Imperial civilization. For the next hour, Kethral found himself answering questions instead of asking them. The humans wanted to know about Imperial technology, politics, and culture. Their questions were intelligent and well-informed. They clearly understood galactic politics better than he had expected. We have heard that some Imperial worlds struggle with food production, said a man introduced as General Tejo. Is this true? Well, yes, Kethral admitted. Some of our outer colonies have difficulties with farming in harsh environments. Interesting, said a young woman named Young Mi. We have developed methods for growing food in very challenging conditions. Perhaps we could share our knowledge. Kethral was confused. These humans were talking about helping the Empire instead of asking for help. They seemed to have solutions for problems that plagued Imperial worlds. I think there may be some misunderstanding, he said carefully. We are here to offer you membership in the Empire. You would become Imperial citizens and contribute to our civilization. The room fell silent. The humans looked at each other again, and Kethral could see them having a wordless conversation. Finally, So Young spoke. Ambassador Kethral, we appreciate your offer, but we must ask you something important. What would happen if we chose to remain independent? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Kethral knew the answer, but suddenly he wasn't sure he wanted to say it out loud. These humans had built something remarkable on their world. They had survived the impossible and created a civilization that seemed more advanced than many Imperial worlds. That, he said slowly, would be a decision for my superiors to make.